Folks, we are so appreciative for you tuning in and for us to have our favorite here in the studio, John LeBoutillier, who joins us this morning live on the air. Hey!
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, John.
I'm so happy to meet you finally after a lot of years of being originally in the diner when you did the your show there.
Yeah.
Then we had a hiatus of a decade or so, and then this show, and I love my Friday mornings being with you, and here I am on a Thursday because a friend of mine said, John, you're in Newport for this conference. You're right next to New Bedford. You ought to go over there. So we put today together. It's so fun for me to finally meet everybody.
Yeah. Oh, and people are going to phone in and say hello to you?
Do, please.
All right.
Let's talk serious stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Your friendly.
Let's talk about some of the things in the news. Obviously, this tragedy yesterday is, well, it needs to be addressed on a couple of levels. One is I hate to see what is going on as they politically change the tone of the story and try to bring an agenda in on it. That's one. But the mental illness component of it as well.
We've got to do something in this country about it. Number one, take the stigma off. And number two, the big thing no one ever talks about, the biggest problem inside mental illness, to me, abuse of prescription drugs. This is an epidemic in this country. People get the drugs legally, they mistake them, they self-medicate.
Yeah.
They're whacked out on stuff, uppers, downers, sleeping pills, whatever it is. A lot of people have this. And that thing needs to be addressed. I don't know how, but it needs to be talked about. I used to debate Timothy Leary.
Really?
On the college circuit, yep. And the topic was legalization of drugs. Because he was the, for those of you who are too young to remember Dr. Leary, he was the guru of LSD at Harvard and all that. And he went out on the circuit advocating the decriminalization of pot. I don't think he wanted to do it to cocaine. But he wanted looser laws on drugs. And I used to say to him, we can't handle legal drugs in this country. We've got all these people zonked out of their heads on too much Valium, too much whatever, right? And if we can't handle legal drugs, why are we legalizing more drugs? And I still think that issue is sitting there, and it's a shame.
So this guy who did the murdering, he blamed his color, his sexual, he's gay, black, and he changed the tone then to point to Charleston, South Carolina.
He'd been fired too, though, hadn't he?
He'd been fired.
From this station 2 years earlier. Yeah.
And he's had a history of not being able and easy to get along with. So the guy obviously had a problem. But now when you multiply that times the millions of people across the country, we have a problem here in America.
We have a huge problem. And I don't know that we can stop all of it.
Well, how do we address it?
Well, like the one you mentioned in South Carolina, Charleston, Mr. Roof, who went into the church and killed 9 people. Now, he was off his rocker. His parents and his mother knew it.
Yep. His
father gave him a pistol for his 21st birthday, and the mother took it away, and then they fought over it or something. The number one to me, when you're a child or a young adult, the parent has to intervene a little bit more to protect the kid from himself and society from the kid.
Right.
I'm sorry, but there has to be some responsibility. On the Newtown thing, Mrs. Lanza, who let her son have access to guns. I mean, she's the number one culprit in that thing.
Absolutely.
He was a very sick kid.
Sure.
There are things that unite these cases. They're all guys, not girls.
Great.
They're young. They're antisocial. They spend an extraordinary amount of time alone playing video games, which maybe desensitizes their head. There are little clues to this.
Yes.
But
there definitely is.
Phil, I love being here. Because we've talked on the phone for so long.
Years.
I do radio shows all over the country. I never met any of the hosts.
Yeah.
They're all friends of mine, but I don't know them. I'm a great friend of mine.
Now you have some local friends that we've talked about before. Somebody you've gone to school with. Somebody who's revered locally.
Great guy.
As the leading cardiologist, Dr. Bill Kaplan.
Correct. Known him since I was 14. He was 15. He wanted to be a doctor even then.
Really?
And he's a wonderful human being.
How did you know him back then? So
we went to Brooks School together in North Andover, Mass.
Yeah.
And became great friends.
Yeah.
And it's a friendship filled with insults.
The funnier the better.
Yeah. And I loved his mother and his father. And we've just always been friends. And years later, he came down to Long Island to stay with me once. And my mother loved him, thought he was great.
Yeah.
I said, Mom, you got bad judgment.
First time in New Bedford for you?
No, I came here with him once when I was in college and he was in medical school or something. We were just talking the other day because of today.
Right.
We were setting up a meeting today. And he said, yeah, I remember driving you down, maybe to visit his father or something. But it was at night. So
Yeah.
This is my first real adult visit.
Right. Oh.
And maybe the last, the way it's going, Phil.
8 minutes before the hour, and we have phone calls at 996-0500. Let's take a call or two and say hello to John. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning.
Can I jump out of the subject for 2 minutes?
What would you-
local news?
What would you like to talk about locally?
Well, Carter Brook School, now where the children are from 6 to 12 years old, no longer have a bus route. So if you live within a mile and a half from the school, there's no bus. Now, my grandchild is 6 years old. She has to walk to school.
So, that is crazy. How do you expect to resolve this?
Well, I'm calling up and trying to get people to talk about it. There's 300 kids in this school.
Well, what's a resolution to this? I mean, I appreciate you using the station as a,
Why don't you go get every parent of every one of these kids, sign a petition, and demand a bus?
Yeah, that's what you do.
Okay, the only thing is, the school is going to start next week, and they let them know yesterday.
All right, we got to get it reversed.
Yeah, exactly.
And in numbers, there's strength.
That's right.
I called up the administrator. I'm calling everybody I can.
Yeah.
See what can be done. You know.
Well, this is what can be done. When they hear enough folks saying, "Hey, wait, we have a problem here," you're not going to. How old is your granddaughter?
She's 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
No way.
She has to work from. Walk from Hathaway
On the
Manor.
road? Are you kidding me?
No.
Up Hathaway Road.
Listen.
And all the way down Rockdale Avenue.
No, absolutely. So start by calling who you did, also your neighbors, but obviously you need to call City Hall.
I just tried calling the mayor's office.
And?
The phone calls. It says, "Good morning, hello."
Well,
goodbye. That was it.
No, it's not 9 o'clock yet. All right, so.
Okay.
What? What are you laughing for? No, when they're there, they'll answer the phone. Just tell them. All right, my friend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. 996-0500. That's the beauty of hometown radio. You know,
radio's the best.
It is. It really is. Thanks for joining us, caller.
Phil, if I was stranded on an island forever,
you'd want a Bible and an AM radio.
I want radio. I don't need
a transistor radio.
If I can't have, if you can only have either radio or TV, I'm taking the radio.
Caller, welcome. How are you, buddy? Good.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning.
Good morning, Casey, and good morning, John. A pleasure to have you in the New Bedford area.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to get a little, I guess, old-fashioned on you. I've been in this country for 60 years now, since I was born, and I believe, unfortunately, that my generation and myself have lived through what is going to and had been the greatest time in this country.
Mm-hmm.
How is it ever going to get back to being the good old U.S. of A?
Well, that's a great question.
Who respect it and love it, because I just don't see that anymore, and unfortunately. How are we ever going to get this government to be fixed, John?
Okay, so
I'll leave it at that, guys. Have a great day, and boy, if you can answer that one.
All righty.
Well, first of all, it's a great question, and you reflect what 80% of Americans are feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil has a friend of his in the studio here, Leo. We just were talking about it off the air. Unfortunately, when you're our age, you have some experience with things. You've seen things. And we have seen this exact situation before in 1978, 79, and 80, where we had unbelievable inflation. It was 13 or 12% inflation, 21% interest rates, 15% unemployment, known as the misery index.
Yeah.
The hostages being held in Iran, gas lines. I mean, it was a mess. And this nice caller would have called then and said the same thing. And that's where the people were, and they added in another thing, which was, I'm not sure any one man can handle the job of president anymore. It's too much for one person. And then came 1980, and Reagan beat Carter. And within 3 years, all of this talk was gone. The country was back on track. We felt good about being America again. The economy picked up. Bang. We had a great 20 years off of Reagan. Off of that one election turned the country in a different direction. I was a minor speck in there. I got elected with Reagan and voted for the things in the Congress, the tax cut, the economic revival program, the new defense budget that did help turn things around. But we have since shrunk back down again. And the question is, will 2016's election, which we are into now, will this result again in a change of direction, or will it further the decline that I think we all feel we're in now? And that's the answer.
Who can help turn this around? Who can work with Congress on both sides to help turn this around?
Well, or will Congress be changed by the election enough so that they will wake up and get off the dime? Because they're part of the problem, too.
Sure. Joe Biden may run for president. Your initial thoughts?
He's not the man.
He's not the man.
I say this on the air a lot, Phil, and I've said it to you, too. I believe the next president is not yet in the race. First, let's take the Democratic race.
We have 1 minute to do it.
Real fast. Democratic race, Hillary Clinton is in deep legal trouble that is bleeding into her political problems, which is why Biden is sniffing around running. And others are in the wings waiting if she goes down. I don't think she's going to make it. I think she's in more legal trouble than the media says. And I think if she doesn't make it, if she doesn't run, if she's not the nominee, who is the Democratic nominee? Whoever it is not yet in the race. None of those four people. Bernie Sanders is not winning. Jim Webb, Link Chafee, they're not it. So that means the Democratic nominee is not in the race yet.
Right. And Donald Trump?
Well, we need more than a minute to do Donald Trump.
And we'll do that on the flip side. And folks, thank you very much for joining us this morning as we have a cup of coffee together, and we welcome you to a brand new, beautiful Thursday. If you're going out enjoying our gorgeous beaches around here, consider it a blessing to be from New Beige. That's how you pronounced it, right? New Beige?
Well, Kaplan, Dr. Kaplan.
Oh, now you're blaming Kaplan?
New Beige, he used to say. When he snuck down here to visit a girl.
We open up the phone lines. Any of you who would like to ask John anything, 508-996-0500. We were talking about something when the news was going on, and it's very important that we address this.
Okay.
The decline of America and how it's going to come back. Will it come back? A lot of folks say, hey, that ship has left and it ain't turning around.
Yeah. Well, first of all, that is the issue in the 2016 election, the decline of America.
Right.
And only one candidate has even touched it. It's Trump, of course, and it's the line about, I'm going to make America great again on his baseball cap. That's his campaign slogan. Just that alone means that he's way ahead of the others in talking about the underlying issue. Doesn't yet have a coherent plan. And off the air, I think, during the commercial, but maybe on too, I said what bothers me about Trump is he gets off track and goes off on these tangents against different newscasters and all. And that's okay when the newscaster is a liberal. But it makes no sense if you're a Republican to be dumping on Fox News. That just is not going to help you in the long run. You need Fox. Fox wants to help Trump. They wanted to help him. But they have to defend their own. They have to defend their star is Megyn Kelly, who did nothing wrong. She asked him one question, throwing back at him quotes that he had said about Rosie O'Donnell.
Right.
Is that a big deal? No. And Trump answered it at first. The first half of the answer was great when he said, I only said those things about Rosie O'Donnell. What he should have done is when the laughter died down, he should have said, Megyn, let's get serious for a minute about the issue of women in America. We're told that this president cares all about women. But let's look at the truth. In the Obama White House, women are paid 70 cents on the dollar compared to men. In the Trump organization, I pay women equal to men or sometimes more than men. Bang. He wins the issue. He doesn't have a spat with Fox. people go, oh, my God, I didn't know this. I mean, that would have been the best answer.
Sure.
He didn't do it.
Yep.
The Civil War is a huge... First of all, where we are here in Massachusetts, where the Revolution began, and the country came from, obviously, the Revolution, and in order to create this country, the founders, including John Adams, who your friend Leo and I were talking about before the show, held their bile, and made a deal with slave-owning states to create a country that tolerated slavery. And it took 80 years for this awful sin to then have to be rectified, which the Civil War did. And Abraham Lincoln, during the war, said, I've come to see that God, and I'm paraphrasing, God in his own way is punishing both sides for what happened to create the country. Not just the Confederacy, but we in the North were punished with huge amounts of death and suffering. And you could say because we went along with slavery at the beginning. People, all these people say, oh, I'm a believer in the Constitution. Oh, yeah? Go read the Constitution. It says blacks are 3/5 of a human being. Do we believe in that today? No. And that's the mentality that created the country. Things change. But we don't go back and trash the history. You don't go back and say everybody who partook in that needs to be purged from history. That's what they do in the Soviet Union. If you're in a photograph and then you went out of favor, they actually Photoshop you out of the picture. In America, that's not the way we do it.
Caller, I know you've been very patient, so first let me thank you for that. Secondly, say hello to John LeBoutillier.
Good morning.
Well, good morning.
I just wanted to ask you one question.
Me or John?
John.
Okay.
All right. Shoot.
Well, I thought
literally.
you was on the phone. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say this.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you run for president? You are so knowledgeable, and I want to hear some more.
Well, that's very kind. I will tell you my honest answer about me ever running again for public office. I will only run again, and I will run again someday, when I finish this thing that I've talked on the air with Phil about over the last year. I'm very devoted to an issue that is the American POWs left behind in the Vietnam War in Vietnam and Laos. There are 300 plus still over there. Our government has done nothing to bring them home and a lot to prevent them from coming home.
Oh, dear.
Yep, and I'm devoted to this as a private citizen, and I'm going to get it done my own way, I hope. And until and unless that happens, I'm not going back into politics.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That would be a very great loss.
Oh.
Well, that's kind of you, but it
It
doesn't
is.
mean it can't happen.
It is. Thank you so
but thanks.
much.
You made my whole day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The check is in the mail.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the POWs and the MIAs. Very, very important.
Well, I'm going back over there again in September, and I'm trying to make a deal to get the prisoners out because the government won't do it, and there are prisoners being held there. Mm-hmm. I've talked at great length to the Vietnamese government for years. The men are old. They serve no purpose to hold them anymore, and the U.S. government doesn't want them. So we'll see if I can get them.
Why did we ever turn our backs on our own in the first place?
Now, because of an odd confluence of events which you and Leo, sitting here with us in the studio, will remember. We're old enough. Which was the Paris Peace Agreement ending Vietnam.
Of course.
Said there are 1,200 men there, and we're going to give you, Nixon wrote a letter to the Vietnamese as part of the agreement. It was a side deal, interesting term, where we promised to give them $4.75 billion in 1973, and they promised to give us all the prisoners back. All right?
Right.
$4.75 billion for 1,200 prisoners. They sent 600 home at the beginning, which included John McCain, Admiral Stockwell, all the famous ones, Stockdale. Mm-hmm. And they waited for the money and kept the other 600 as an insurance policy to get paid. They never got paid.
Why?
Well, because when the first prisoners came home, they started telling the stories. I was tortured. I had my shoulders pulled out of the socket. I was burned. I was beaten. Congress said, we're not giving these guys any money. Why are we going to give Vietnam $5 billion to do this to our men? And Nixon was still president, begged Congress, shut up. He sent the Secretary of State, William Rogers, up to Congress and said, stop talking. You can't say this. If you start saying, we're not going to pay, they won't give the other 600 back. Well, they never gave the other 600 back. And then Watergate started blowing open in the spring. Nixon starts going down the drain with the whole knowledge of the prisoners and the deal, and they fell through the cracks.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many of you knew that part of the story, folks? And this is why you're the only one I know who is continuing this advocacy on behalf of POWs and MIAs, John. You're the only one.
No, well, there are others, but I'm lucky enough to be on the air, but there are others who care very, very, very much about it.
How is it going? Where is it going?
Well, we'll see. I know a woman, for instance, Carol Herdlicka, who, great lady, she married a guy named David Herdlicka. He was shot down in 1965. That's 50 years ago this year. Captured in Laos, photographed in the newspaper, like on the front of this paper here that you've got, the New Bedford Coasting Standard Times. The Lao paper had a picture of this guy on the ground with Lao guards aiming rifles at him while they walked him along in his uniform. He then had to do a radio broadcast on Radio Moscow. So he was definitely alive in captivity. Never came back, never been told what happened to him. Carol Herdlicka, his wife, waits and waits. 65, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The war ends in 73 or 5, whenever there. The U.S. government says all the prisoners are dead. She said, but I have no evidence he's dead. And they said, well, he's dead. They're all dead. So she finally says, all right. So she marries another man. And during that marriage, she says, this doesn't feel right to me. I think David's still alive. So she divorces the husband, takes the old name back, and she is still Carol Herdlicka. A friend of mine now lives in Kansas, waiting for her, and not just waiting. She's been pushing. She helped found the League of Families in the 60s.
Yeah.
The plight of a woman like her.
Wow.
There are hundreds of them. What do they do? Do they believe the husband's dead and move on? They have children. They need money. They have a job.
Sure.
And what do the parents of these guys do when they were alive? And the children of them. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy.
What is Congress doing today? What's the president doing today?
Well, the Congress only knows what they're told by the executive branch. Was a congressman write a letter over to the DIA and they're told, oh, no, Congressman, there's no evidence of any men there, which is all baloney. And I'm one of the few congressmen who didn't believe it. I just didn't believe what they told me. And I went on my own with one other congressman, and we went repeatedly to Hanoi, Vientiane. We talked to the Lao. We talked to the Vietnamese. They told us there were prisoners there.
Wow.
So I know
this is recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like this year.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You have to
You'll hear more about it.
Yeah, good. Let's see if we have some folks here. Are you joining us? Good morning, caller.
Thank you. I have a question for John.
By all means, welcome.
Hi. I think he almost might have answered my question. Is there any, about the POWs, is there any certifiable proof that any of them are still alive over there?
The most recent, what I would call proof, would be satellite and aerial photographs taken by our planes and satellites of symbols that the prisoners put on the ground. Now, every pilot is given an escape and evasion code that is unique to him. So it's like your PIN number for your ATM machine. Only you have whatever number it is, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't understand that. Aren't we at peace now? The war's over there, so why would they even still be there? If the war's over, why aren't they automatically sent back?
Well, they ought to be sent back. The U.S. government should have gone to the Vietnamese and said, "We'll give you what you need. We made a deal. We reneged. Let's give us the men." But that's not how.
Unbelievable that they could be there all this
time. I know.
Time.
Of course it is. It's terrible, and it's a sign of how rotten our government has become.
Why can't we just go and get them? Why? So start another war.
We're not going. No. We're not going back to war in Vietnam. That I wish we.
Well, we got to get them out.
We have to get them out, but It could be easily done if the U.S. government. But here's the problem. What's your name, ma'am?
Mary.
Mary. The problem would be, in order to get them back, the U.S. government is going to have to admit that we've lied for 40-plus years
They'll
to
never
the
do it.
American people.
They'll never.
All right, folks, what are we going to do with John? Coffee milk, quahogs, cassurla, sweet bread. Oh, you have to try the Portuguese sweet rolls.
Okay, can't wait.
All right.
Let's go.
We have chowder, not chowder.
Chowder. New England clan chowder.
Chowder. Have you ever tried our own local scallops? The best in the
Can't
world.
wait. Maybe for lunchtime.
Yeah, the best in the world.
Thank you for welcoming me, everyone. All the nice callers, you listeners, I love it here. I went to school for 10 years in Massachusetts. New Beige is my best friend's home.
That's
so I'm
right.
happy to be here. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much, John. We truly, truly appreciate this, and we embrace you with all of our gratitude, and most especially for being a truth seeker. Thank you.